You're a staff writer at the New Yorker. How do story ideas come to pass? As a staff writer, do you approach this collectively, or is it you one-on-one with another editor?
It's always one-on-one with another editor. There was a brief period when in the early aughts, when we tried valiantly to have staff meetings at the New Yorker, ideas meetings, and they were such failures that Remnick cut them off and said, this will never work. It's one-on-one. I have a brilliant editor, I'm going to say young guy, like George Burns in the Sunshine Boys. I want you to meet a young fella of 65, right? Henry is now, must be 50-something, but I think of him as a young editor. Is a brilliant guy, really brilliant guy, knows everything, is omniscient. And, we talk once or twice a year about what's obsessing me right then. Because I only write really well out of my obsessions. I know I write a lot of different stuff, and people think, oh, he's just kind of glib, and they throw something at him, and he writes something. It's really not that way. I have to write out of the things I'm obsessed with. Fortunately, I usually get obsessed about a lot of things, because I don't have a lot of things going on in my life, so I have lots of time for obsession. And I get obsessed, so I'll say, I've been reading Trollope's political novels. I'd love to write something about Trollope's political novels. Or I'm fascinated this guy is running for president of Iceland, who I actually know. He's an historian. Love to go over and write something about that. And 9 times out of 10, Henry says, oh, that's a good idea. Why don't you do that? Or let me look for an occasion to let you do that. Once in a while, David Remnick, the editor, who's, oddly enough, I didn't also put this in the book because I thought it would seem extraneous, but I met when I was at GQ. He was a young writer and I was a young editor. Never imagining that he would go on to become the editor of the New Yorker and I would be writing there. He'll say, could you possibly do this for us? And so, for instance, in 2012, when Mitt Romney was running for president, he said it would really be good to have a really interesting piece about Mormonism, because everyone talks about Mormonism, but we don't really know much about it. He said, would you read the Book of Mormon and tell us what it contains? And I read quickly, and I said, sure, I'll read the Book of Mormon. It's a huge mistake. It's the most boring work ever written. But it's interesting that it's boring because the Mormons actually didn't so much read it as present it to show that they had a sacred text. Anyway, so on occasion, once a year, Remnick will ask, or similarly, not long ago, when Mein Kampf was being republished in Germany, I don't know if any of you remember that, he said, would you read Mein Kampf and tell us what's actually in it? Everybody thinks they know what's in Mein Kampf, but they don't. It was fascinating, chilling, of course, but fascinating to read it and write about it as though as indeed I was reading it for the first time, but write about it with a fresh eye in that way. It's a fascinating book because you'd think that Hitler would try to cover up what a miserably unhappy human being he was, but instead he foregrounds what a miserably unhappy human being was, how much he hated his father, how much he hated his teachers, how miserable his childhood and his adolescence were. And you realize, oh, that's how he sold himself, right? Because he gave everyone else license to be for their own misery, to their own bitterness to become a motive. I make no extrapolations from that, but something hugely powerful about a political figure who says, you know what, you feel angry and embittered, and you're right. I feel just as angry and embittered as you feel, and you have a license to be angry and embittered. So once or twice a year I'll get a request like that. And the truth is, it's an assignment, because what am I going to say? No, David, I won't do it, right? But basically, it's a combination, the confluence of my obsessions with Henry's ability to find an occasion in which I can express my obsessions.
Thank you.